Hello, and welcome to the York Region District School Board Trustee by-election forum, right here on Rogers TV, Georgina. My name is Dave Szollosy, and I will be your moderator for this debate. The Georgina trustee position became available earlier this year when the previous trustee, Nancy Elgie, stepped down. So for this by-election, we have 5 candidates, and here they are, from left to right: Rick Boudreau, Megan Houston, Robin Legault, Justin Porter, and Cynthia Cordova. Each of the candidates will be given the opportunity for a 1-minute opening statement, the order of which we previously determined by a draw. I will then pose questions to each one of the candidates, each taking turns to respond first. All the candidates will be given the opportunity to answer each question. At any time, when I ask the candidates to indicate if they would like to speak, we may open up a question for further debate. Now, all candidates will have 1 minute to answer each question. At the end of our debate, each candidate in reverse order will have an opportunity for a 1-minute closing statement. The Georgina Public School Trustee by-election will take place on Friday, June 23rd. This today is your best way to be informed and the best way to know your candidates. Now, let's begin with opening statements. From candidate number 1, we'll start with Rick Boudreau.
Good morning, David, and thank you for inviting me here. And good morning, Cynthia and Justin and Robin and Megan. I wrote a brief biography on a little bit of my background and what I've been doing for a living. I work in the automotive industry, and for more than 40 years, I built a career of accomplishments based on helping others get what they want. So that makes me 2 things: very experienced and very old. So what qualifies me as your school board trustee other than living in Keswick for 28 years? While with Ford of Canada, I was appointed to serve 2 3-year terms on several national committees. Their purpose, for example, was to create policies to simplify administration responsibilities for Ford dealers across Canada. I represented Ontario and Western Quebec. The scope was a bit different than the York Region School Board. As your trustee, I will bring many transferable skills.
I'm going to have to ask you this to cut there, and maybe you can have a chance in your closing statement to follow up on that. So move to opening statement from candidate number 2, and that's Megan Houston.
Thank you so much for having us here today, and I wanted to thank Jim and Dave and Rogers Television for having us. I grew up in York Region, and I grew up in York Region schools. I had some really great experiences, and I had some experiences that weren't so great, much like many students. I took those experiences that I had with me forward into the future. As a mature student, I went to school and I obtained degrees in history and anthropology and education. It was during my last year of my teaching practicum that I realized that I wasn't actually meant to be teaching in a classroom. I was meant to transfer my passion and my love of education in some other way. And so I have been working in various education-related fields ever since.
Thank you. Now I go to candidate 3, Robin Legault.
Thank you for having all of us here, especially myself. My name is Robin Legault. I've been in Georgina for 7 years. I have 2 wonderful children. My youngest has Tourette syndrome, and my oldest, unfortunately, I have witnessed firsthand the concerns the parents are having with bullying. My daughter tried to commit suicide twice, and we were ignored by the past trustee of 17 years. Everything was ignored, from emails to answers, and that's not right. This needs to change. I would love to bring mental health, student success, and well-being to the table. And I'm not going to sit here and promise anything that I can't deliver, that's outside the mandate. And above all, we need a trustee that will go above and beyond to build positive relationships with students, parents, and faculty.
Thank you. Candidate number 4, Justin Porter.
All right, thank you for having us. I actually live just outside of Pefferlaw with my wife and our 4 young children, 2 of whom are actually diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, and one of whom actually requires significant support. I understand, therefore, the difficulties that parents and teachers face in teaching children with special needs, and especially when there's not enough classroom support and resources. Over the past several years, we've had the privilege of witnessing the explosive growth and increasing diversity of our community here in Georgina. Unfortunately, it is also evident that our schools need resources and better support to emerge from a history of lackluster performance, poor transparency, and the proliferation of bullying, drug abuse, and intolerance. We need to empower dedicated teachers to uplift our students and foster a safe environment that's conducive to learning. And as trustee, I will work to ensure better and broader education in Georgina that embraces our diversity.
Thank you very much. And the last opening statement from Cynthia Cordova.
Hello, and thank you for watching today's debate. My name is Cynthia Cordova, and I'm running to be your next trustee from Georgina because I want to put students first. My husband and I have 2 children in our local systems. I know firsthand what is happening in our Georgina schools. I also work every day with young people and run my own business. I understand how to make decisions, and I see how good and bad policies affect the lives of students as they grow into young adults. My plan is called Putting Students First. After canvassing door to door and meeting thousands of people in Georgina, I have identified 3 priority areas. Parents told me they wanted 3 things. First, put students first. Every policy decision should be viewed through this lens. Second, provide services for special needs, learning disabled, ASD, and other students in need, restoring respect to the taxpayers' money at the board. Time to manage that $1.5 billion. That's my plan, and that's my focus. I look forward to answering your questions at the debate, and I look forward to representing you as your next school trustee.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's get into some of the questions now that have been prepared by a panel of community members. On the board website, it says really clearly that staff at York Region District School Board take the matter of safety very seriously. Yet, we have increasing reports of violence. Teachers and support staff are the repeated victims, as well as other children, which also have effects from mental health issues that are going on as a result of this violence. Administrators are reluctant to address these concerns as health and safety issues. We all want students to be safe at school. That's a given. But do you consider student violence to be a health and safety issue? And what do you believe as a trustee should be done in an effort to reduce the reported violence? And we'll start this round with Megan.
Thank you so much, Dave. So there is actually legislation in place called the Safe Schools Act. And one thing that I've discovered in talking to parents and in my own experience in schools is that the Safe Schools Act is not necessarily implemented evenly across all schools and by all administration and faculty. I think what needs to happen, and what I'm committed to doing, is working with administration and faculty in the Georgina schools to ensure that the Safe Schools Act is being implemented properly. There are zero tolerance policies for violence, not only against students, but also against teachers, faculty, and other school staff members. And oftentimes, the Safe Schools Act is utilized in a way that those who actually need the assistance from it are the ones who are most affected by it, primarily children who are being bullied.
Thank you. Robin?
Well, this was one of the topics that happened with my daughter, and we were completely ignored. Our cries for something, an answer, was completely ignored, and that's not acceptable on any level. There is supposed to be a zero tolerance of bullying, but it really needs to be closely followed, and if there was a parent that had a concern, I'd love to speak with the parent, the student, the staff, all in one room, and really come to a conclusion of, okay, here's the problem. How are we going to deal with it together, and come together with a solution that works for everybody? And hopefully then we can minimize the bullying that's been going on.
Thank you. Justin.
So bullying is definitely a huge problem in our schools. Unfortunately, I've actually personally had to deal with the violence issues and harassment towards two of my own children. My son, who I mentioned has autism spectrum disorder, at the time was actually very limited in his ability to communicate and suffered severe bullying both in the classroom and on the school bus. Unfortunately, in our concerns being expressed, there was no willingness to really investigate, and we ended up having to bring in Children's Aid before we could get any answers, in which case we actually found that my son was actually being left in an unmonitored situation with someone known to have violent tendencies. Now with that, no one should really have to be calling Children's Aid for that, but the contrast is my daughter was bullied in another York Region District School Board school, and the difference was day and night.
Okay, thank you. Cynthia.
Yes, it's definitely a concern within all of our schools, not only in York Region, but throughout the schools in our areas and throughout the other areas. It is definitely something that we need to look into. Safety and putting students first is the primary concerns when we look at the issue. There is policies and acts in place, and each case is usually unique. So looking at the services and the policies and the procedures in place and helping parents and guide them through, and I'd be happy to do that with them to ensure that there is safety and the best interest of the children are put first.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Rick, last one to this question.
I think, based on your question with bullying and violence, I think the administrators would possibly need further training and maybe expectations set and policies established for that. There was an interesting article in last Saturday's Star about C.W. Jeffries School in North York, and the principal's name was Monday Gala. And it went on and boasted about his unique involvement with each and every student in the entire school. And all their marks have gone up unbelievably so, and I think bullying and bad behavior has gone down to quite an acceptable level under his leadership. So maybe visiting other schools and establishing or determining best practices that work in other communities is something that, if it isn't being done, should be considered at this time. And also to find out what are the common denominators for it. There's got to be some root causes.
Thank you. Maybe we want to come back to that because we're talking about the Health and Safety Act. Maybe we need to come back to that in one of our open rounds. But I want to go on to question 2 now. Again, I've taken a quote from the website, the board website, and it talks about the 12 trustees of the York Region District School Board are responsible for overseeing a thriving and progressive educational system which serves over 123,000 students in more than 200 schools to, among other things, promote student achievement and well-being and deliver effective and appropriate educational programs. How will you work to bring Georgina schools and local students' needs to the forefront in this educational goal? And I'll start this one with Robin.
Thank you. Well, again, like what I've been saying, we've had a past trustee who has ignored the voices of Georgina, and this is not acceptable by any means. Parents have been crying to be heard, and if you were able to elect me, I would love to be your voice. I will personally get involved and take your concerns to heart, as a trustee should, and bring it to the table and say, look, this is what my community is screaming for, and this is important. It's important to them, it's important to me, by all means, and it needs to be brought up. So I think any concern, any comment, anything that somebody wants to say, has to be brought to the board. And I would love to be that person that can be your voice.
Justin?
So I believe that our children deserve better and broader education that will prepare them to thrive in our modern world. It's not okay for our schools to be below average when other schools in York Region are at the top of the rankings. I want to advocate for Georgina and ensure that our schools get the resources and assistance that we need. My personal experience with special needs in the form of ASD and learning disabilities makes this a personal issue to me. And I want to ensure that the schools are consistent in taking quick and decisive action and in actually making sure that they are delivering quality education.
Cynthia?
Hi. I believe a trustee's role is to listen to what the parents are needing, since they are the ones that hire us to be in this position. And so after going door to door and canvassing a lot of the concerns, there was three that was major concerns, and that is definitely one, putting students first, and every decision should be made in that direction of always putting students first at the board, and enhancing services that are needed. And one of them is the special needs and the ASD students with learning disabilities and others. And of course, the other thing is managing that $1.5 billion budget to the resources for the students and what they need to enhance their learning. So that's always been my plan, and that's the plan of the people in Georgina that I've experienced going door to door. And hopefully by voting for me on June 23rd, I can put that plan in action.
Thank you. Rick?
I would agree with everybody up here too about listening to understand, and I also think setting expectations with anything that we've done, whatever is special needs or any other issues, and I think the expectations that are set, people should be accountable for what their role is, and I think that would be a fair starting place.
And finish off with Megan.
Thank you. One of the things I'm extremely interested in making sure happens as part of my campaign is access to quality education for all students. And the access to education goes beyond students with exceptionalities or students who are from low socioeconomic backgrounds. I think that we need to start looking at students as individuals, and we need to stop looking at them as just the grade 9 class at Sutton District School, High School. We need to start looking at beyond the classroom. And we need to start looking at the culture of the school. And I think that when we have a culture within our schools that promote a safe school environment, it does help to bring about a sense of well-being, and it does help students achieve.
Thank you. Good. Next question. I'm sure you've all read the report to the Minister of Education that was called on the for the probe that the Mitzi Hunter, the minister, had called for. And in that report, it spoke about a climate of generated mistrust and an environment where equity and transparency are shunned. Now, part of the culture that's developed into the York Region District School Board is that there is almost no public debate among the trustees at the board meetings, and almost all decisions and debate happen in private session. Where do you stand when it comes to allowing the public to hear the debate of the trustees? And I'll start this round with Justin.
Right. So I definitely believe that there needs to be quite a bit more transparency, and I think that with the York Region District School Board under more scrutiny, that is beginning to change. Now, that being said, at times there are issues that are discussed which may involve confidential matters. As long as the right procedures and right actions are taken to ensure that the confidentiality of those involved individuals is protected, then there's no reason why all discussions should not be publicly viewable.
Cynthia?
This is a two-part question. The first part is, yes, I have fully read the report, and what it does state and prove is that the complaints of the parents were right. And so I look forward to working with the parents and the people to have a cultural change in regards to the putting students first. And the second part is I've already thought about that, and I've already put forth a letter into Rogers TV to have the meetings televised to be hopefully put on the York Region School District Board. So I've already thought the idea, put in action the plan, and that's what I choose to do when I get in, or if I get in to be your next school trustee, is see the need, put forth the concerns, and put it into action. So yes, hopefully that does go through, and I believe I CC'd everyone on that.
Greg?
Oh, I'm certainly in favor of having, whether it's a debate or a sharing of ideas or conversations with parents, rather than having meetings that don't include the parents. So I totally support that at any time.
Thank you. Megan?
In speaking with a lot of parents through social media and in person, one of the things that has come out is that for parents in Georgina, it's sometimes difficult for them to get down to the board meetings held in Aurora, 7 o'clock, for them to be able to get home from work, feed their kids, get their kids' homework done, and then get in the car and drive down. It's not often a feasible thing. So one of the things that I've proposed is the creation of regular community meetings in and around Georgina, in our schools, and working more closely with parent council about the issues that are being raised at the board. So while parents might not necessarily be able to get down to some of these meetings, we can at least get those messages back to the parents and back into the hands of the people who are making the decisions for their children.
Thank you. And Robin?
I completely agree with Cynthia, what she's saying about it being publicized through Rogers TV. However, I'm thinking what might be even more feasible is having like the AV or the media clubs in high schools come out and maybe do a web stream feed where they can post it right on the YRDSB website and stream it through there, so that if anybody wanted to see, they could see what's going on. I have been at every meeting since January, and on my website, I have blogged about everything going on, because there's a huge need for accountability and transparency. And if we were able to web stream what's going on, then, people can always look back on that and say, oh, they said this. So it's a very good idea.
Thank you. Question 4. York Region enjoys a particularly diverse population, both culturally and economically. But recently, we have had charges of intolerance within the administration and leadership within the school board, including racist, homophobic, Islamophobic statements and attitudes. How do you propose to advocate for those of different ethnicities, races, religions, and sexual and gender identities? Cynthia, you're first on this round.
Sure. I have already spoken with some of the parents involved in the human rights complaint against the board, and I have committed to working with them and other parents to make sure that the board offers respectful and professional dialogue on the issues that affect our children. Because at the end of the day, putting students first means treating parents with respect.
Thank you. Rick?
That's a very complicated question. My working background in the city of Toronto, the diversity that we had as our client base was everything that exists in Toronto. And my experience always was, just by listening to someone, it didn't really matter. And you could always find out whatever we had to do to move forward with one of our customers. And I don't see how that would really be much different with the school board. I think if people listen, and we're all people. We're all here to gain the same benefits of an education and hopefully a good career following graduation. So that'd be my approach on it.
Megan, then?
As our community grows and our schools do become more populated and more diverse, I think it's extremely important for parents and students to really come together to learn a little bit more about their neighbors. You know, we seem to, go home at the end of the day and close our door and not really communicate with those around us. But by involving ourselves more within the community, I think once we get to know the people around us, as Rick was saying, I think there's enough common ground that we'd be able to start to build and forge these relationships of respect and tolerance. As far as it goes with staff and administration, I think there does need to be definitely some retraining around some of those policies, those human rights policies.
Thank you. Robin.
Well, I'm going to agree with what has already been said, but with the new subdivisions coming into Georgina, there's more and more people from Toronto coming up here, and I was always raised, you treat people the way you want to be treated in return, and it doesn't matter what race, what background, anything like that. As far as I'm concerned, there's only one race. It's called the human race. It's helping each other out, and as a trustee, you are in a leadership role, and you want what's nothing but the best for students, for parents, for your community. And, to see that all come together, at the end of the day, you have to help one another out. So I feel that, again, there's only one race. It's humans.
Thank you. And Justin.
So racism and prejudice are indeed abhorrent, and they are serious problems. Now, there is more that can be done in our schools, and what we need to do is to take a positive approach. We need to promote diversity through cultural outreach, through spirit days, guest storytellers, speakers, basically getting the community involved and getting more diverse input so that people become real to each other. There has to be the inclusion of the accomplishments of different groups and cultures, different ethnicities, and what they have contributed to society and what people of those groups have contributed to society. And we need to give our students a world-embracing education that fights ignorance and prejudice, and therefore promote dignified discussions of all groups.
Thank you. I want to take some time here now for a moment to open it up to reflect on some of the questions that have gone on, and we'll have a little bit more of a free-for-all in response, but indicate to me before you start to speak, please, so I can recognize you. I particularly want to look at, though, the themes that I'm hearing coming from pretty much all the candidates. When I ask about health and safety legislation, health and safety programs in the schools, I heard a lot of answers back on individual cases of bullying. When we talked about systemic examples of intolerance and Islamophobia and homophobia that we've had in school, no one has addressed any kind of systemic problem in the system. We're talking about individuals need to be have their minds opened. I want to start on the theme of this on the first four questions. Do any of you see systemic problems that have to be addressed from a board-wide perspective, or rather than just simply viewing these problems as one-offs or individual concerns to address? And I've got Cynthia on first, indicating.
I'm ready to jump in, I guess. I do believe it exists in society.
What exists? Sorry.
The last topic we were talking about with racism and issues on the board. It was proven in the report that there is an issue. It's on the table, and it does exist. And it does exist at the board level. And that is important that we confront it head on. Because every child, as we all agree, deserves the best education. Last month, they have announced that they are doing a training, which we all agree. And what was interesting in that fact, that the training was scheduled for July 19th, which I opposed to that. And I demanded at the board level that they reconsider postponing that training until someone at Georgina was elected. And I CC'd all my candidates in regards to that equity training that they they have proposed on July 19th. And I'm happy to report that they have changed that date. And it will include one of the candidates from Georgina. That would have been embarrassing. So we do need to confront the problems at hand, and that's what I believe is what we need to do. Any issue that arises, whether it be a health and safety, whether it be a racism issue, whether it be any other issue that's on the board, it needs to be discussed, it needs to be put on board, and it needs to be put in action for the best interest of putting the students first.
Thanks. Megan, you want to come in on this?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of that comes down to creating a culture of respect. Not just respect for the faculty and the administration, but respect for the students and the parents and their experiences. Because as Justin pointed out, very, very amazingly, who else are the best people to teach about diversity but people who have experience and who come from diverse communities? So instead of having a teacher or somebody from within the community come up and start talking to us, say, for example, about issues within the First Nations community, why not go to the amazing resource that we have on Georgina Island and speak to the elders and have the elders come into the community or come into our schools and teach us and teach our students about First Nations issues, both contemporary and historical. I think that we often lose sight of the amazing resources that we do have within our community, and I think that we need to utilize those in a better way. And I think by doing that, it will break down the systemic racism and the systemic issues that we do have, this underlying culture of almost mistrust of other people, of outsiders that some people have.
I'm going to let Robin come in on this because she indicated, then we'll go on to the next question, okay? Please, Robin.
I believe teamwork. Teamwork is a big, big thing. If all of the trustees are able to talk and, come together as a team, things generally work a lot better. For instance, like a soccer team, if all the kids are not communicating, then you don't have a goal happening. It's the same with the trustees. Every trustee has to be on the same page and understand fully that, okay, this is a serious problem. We need to deal with this and come together as a team for things to work smoothly. There needs to be training so that everyone, again, is on the same page. And that's, I believe wholeheartedly, that this is something that really does need to happen.
Which is a good segue into our next question I want to pose to you then. So again, taking it from the board website, trustees communicate with the public through organized and informal meetings with parent groups and concerned citizens. And they are responsible to develop, communicate, and review annually a multi-year plan. Now, with that framework, what is your strategy to solicit parental and community feedback to enhance student achievement and to further engage members of the community? We'll start this round with Rick.
I'm not sure I am qualified to really respond to that, other than communicating with the parents, I guess, with sending letters with the students home, inviting them to share their ideas in point form of some kind, and or emailing, things like that, so that it could be organized so that we could have a meeting with parents to discuss whatever needs to be discussed during that time.
Thank you then. Megan.
This is very interesting because I actually just posed this question in one of the Facebook groups that I've been communicating with constituents on, and I did a poll and I said, what is the best way that we as trustee candidates and eventually as your trustee would be able to communicate with you about the issues happening at the board? And I was truly amazed at how varied the answer was. So for some people, it isn't, these public meetings. For some people, it is an emailed newsletter, just letting them know what's happening at the board level, what's happening within the community schools, and what's happening with regards to their students. I think that there's so much opportunity now in a variety of mediums to really get your message out. There's no need for people not to have contact.
Thanks. Robin?
Again, I have to go back to the web stream. The web stream is good because it's right there. You can't say, oh, such and such, didn't say this when maybe they did on that web stream. And, really it's accountability. There's so much there hasn't been accountability for so long, and I think that's one of the key aspects of accountability coming forth. Parents usually get letters from the school saying what's going on. There can be emails, there could be letters, there could be meetings like coffee chats. As trustee, I could come out to various locations and say, look, this is what we discussed in the meeting, and what are your thoughts on it? And I mean, my email's always open, so if you have a concern, please do email me and I will get back to you in a timely manner.
Justin?
So I know I've heard a number of things mentioned here in terms of newsletters and the web streams. They're all actually great ideas. Unfortunately, those are one-way methods. I think that there needs to be a two-way communication stream so that we can get the feedback from the parents and concerned parties as well into what input they want in that multi-year plan. I think one of the ways to get that two-way stream of information flowing is to be out there and to be present as the trustee for Georgina, to be present in Georgina schools during times when parents are there for other things like parent-teacher meetings and other such things, so that you're then easily accessible to be able to actually get direct feedback from parents on that. The newsletter is a great idea. It would actually be great to combine that with some sort of poll or some sort of other feedback system as well.
And Cynthia?
Of course, communicating with not only services and parents all around, communicating, getting feedback, being available for them, being in the schools and being aware firsthand what is actually happening is definitely the key. I have a Twitter account as well as a Facebook account that is accessible. But basically during my campaign, I have already demonstrated that the strengths of what I would do to make the changes. The first, that I demanded an apology from the board when the report came out the day after, and a month later I'm pleased to say that the board announced its apology to the parents. I asked for training dates to be changed to include the Georgina, and to my happiness, they have changed that to include one of us. I've also asked for televised meetings to be put on our board meetings, the board meetings to be put on the website of York Region, and I'm hoping that will take place. And I've also reached out to all the school councils of our 13 schools to have them do a survey as far as feedback for what they believe as good qualities for a new director of education.
This whole topic was of particular concern to our community members that were involved in the developing the questions for this forum. I want to ask a slightly different but related question. Looking at the balance that you would strike between being a point of contact for individual public concerns and protecting the interests of the public education system as a whole within York Region. Where is that balance point? And we'll start this round with Megan.
That's a really interesting question. It actually came up in a conversation that I was having with some constituents. There is the need to. There is a very fine line that needs to be walked, because we do need to, as trustees, we have a list of roles and responsibilities that we need to fill. But then some of those roles and responsibilities might not necessarily coincide with the concerns that some of the individual concerns that some of the parents have. So being able to explain where these individual problems fit in the board's mandate, I think will really go a long way to making parents feel heard. It's not just edu-speak. It is actually language that is meant to protect and guide our children. So,
thank you.
It's, again, it's a tough thing to answer, but I mean, parents are the first educators of their children, and you know, as a trustee's door should always be open, and if you have concerns or anything like that, I encourage you to get in touch with your trustee, and you know, even a trustee could possibly educate a parent as to, okay, well, you know what, this is what we can do, but I'm not allowed to do this because this is outside the mandate. Because some parents don't know. Some parents don't know our mandate and what we can and what we can't do. So if we're communicating and building that strong relationship, then we can see something come together where that we're all on the same page.
Thank you. Justin.
So I think it is very important to, with the trustee role being somewhat of a duality, where we're responsible to Georgina, but also the entirety of the York region. And so while first and foremost advocating for and listening to our constituents in Georgina, and with all the individual issues that may be brought up, and also our general concerns, is number one priority, really. It's also better for all of us to also contribute to the entire York Region School Board. There's a reason why there's more than one trustee for the entire region. And in that way, the concerns of our community are brought forward, and then in consultation and discussion, we come to a consensus. It's also a great idea to have a clear communication of exactly what is possible, what we are able to do, and what we're not.
Thank you. And Cynthia.
Well, as I stated, the parents are the boss. The parents and the voters are the boss in hiring the trustees, and therefore listening and finding the major concerns and issues that they address is number one priority. Putting students first is definitely number one priority. But I do believe people do understand in every area there is always going to be policies and procedures and privacy acts, and I believe just explaining that and bringing that up to what the role of a trustee is enough, but keeping in mind that they are the boss, and we need to listen, and we need to listen, in fact, of putting students first, and I don't believe that the board would argue with that, because it is part of the mandate. Students need to come first, and that $1.5 billion needs to be spent for the students' education, and all students require that and deserve that.
Thank you. Rick.
Well, I think part of the role of a school board trustee should also be an agent of change. I think if policies that have been practiced for a long period of time doesn't necessarily mean that they were the right policies, or maybe they don't apply to whatever year we're in compared to when the policies were established. And I've certainly stepped outside the status quo a time or two, and I think probably a number of issues probably need to be revisited to see how they are relevant with our present society. Okay.
Yep. All right. You were aware that a new interim director has been appointed to fill the place of the former director who was dismissed last month. The last hiring process for the previous director has raised some serious questions in respect to both the process and the capacity of trustees to make an appropriate decision. What can you offer as a potential trustee who may be involved in the hiring of a new director that would reassure the people of York Region? And what specific attributes would you look for in that new director? And we'll start this one with Robin.
Well, I think it's really important that whoever this director will be is not only transparent, but is also putting children, putting the students, putting the parents first, because, you know, this is, again, it goes back to student success and well-being. And if you have a director that's, there are unrealistic goals, then things fall apart really quickly. We saw that. We've already been through that. Things don't line up. Now that that old director is now gone, I am starting to see from the last meeting, things are starting to line up, and that's good. We need a positive change, and this director needs to be positive going forward and also part of a team.
Thank you. Justin.
So I think it's actually crucial to ensure that the new director is a person of integrity. That's, to ensure that there's a culture of transparency, of respect. It all filters down right from the top. If at the very top you don't have the right person in place, then it's very, very difficult for the rest of the team to actually function in a proper manner. So really, what we would be looking at is the track record of the potential new director, and take into consideration what is their background, what have they done, what have they accomplished, what are their stated goals, and even how likely they are to do so based on their track record and the level of integrity that we've seen from them.
Thank you. Cynthia.
Well, I've already announced that I've put that plan in action as we speak. I've mailed to the 13 school councils in Georgina a survey for them to participate on what they believe, the qualities that they want to see in the director. I know it's an unheard decision before, but I believe that the people that vote, the voters, the schools, the councils do know what they are looking for. Although they can't be a part of the hiring process, they could definitely be a part of the survey to find out what they're looking for. I've also posted that survey on my website for anybody in Georgina. I'm hoping that the Education Board will also consider filling out the survey. And from there, we'll have a good understanding of what the new director possibly qualities and that people are actually looking for. I know that for sure I will never vote for a 10-year contract and a life commitment to a job. Will be something I will never agree to. So that I do know. But as far as the qualities, I believe that the people can speak.
Rick?
Well, I hope there's some form of a job description and a listing of the desired skills. But I would certainly be interested in knowing a lot more about that. But if, as part of an interviewing process, I think I would also be very interested in knowing what the candidate's reputation is in the past and what type of references does that candidate bring, and also the interpersonal skills. How does the body language read with me, and whether they listen to understand or listen to respond, those types of things, just to see if somebody really wants to take on that role, and how effective would that person be with all the people he interacts with.
Thank you. Megan.
I think that the key attribute for the new director of education definitely needs to be someone who is a change agent. There are so many issues that are happening at the board right now, and we need somebody who is going to be able to come in and not just fall in line with the status quo. And I think that as part of the hiring process, beyond just looking at, what school they went to and, where their past jobs were, I think we need to have them, he, she, whoever that is, give us, as not just as parents, concerned parents of the community, but trustees, a plan for change. What they see the future of the York Region District School Board, how that looks in their mind, and what they're willing to do that.
Thank you. So I want to take another opportunity to open it up for response or elaboration. And I make the observation that there was those last three questions that were a common theme in communications relationship, but I didn't hear much reference to the parent councils. There's one side reference, but in your responses back and forth to each other, I want you to try to incorporate how do you see the role of the trustee with respect to relating to parent councils? Do you want to start off, please, Megan?
Thank you so much. I agree with Cynthia that, you know, the parents are our bosses. You know, if whoever becomes trustee, the parents are the boss. However, I think that parents do. I think that parent councils play an extremely important role in the way that the schools function. And I don't know necessarily, as a trustee, if it's necessarily our place to step in and sort of tell them what to do or how to run within their schools. But if a parent council were to invite the trustee to a council meeting, I think 100% they should be more involved. That's something that that I think is extremely important.
Okay. Cynthia?
I think throughout my debate I have been pretty clear in regards to the school councils. I have already put in motion a survey. As you can see, even just by this debate, we all have an opinion on who we believe could possibly be the next director, and that's why a survey is formulated on my website, so that we can offer those opinions and bring them to whoever, bring them to the board. But I also want to note that as a trustee's role, 13 schools is quite a bit of schools to get around, and therefore I've also put in motion and an idea to bring forth a chair of each council to formulate a chair committee, so that a trustee could sit at that chair committee and navigate of what all 13 schools are concerned, and then the chairs can bring it forth and back down to all of their individual schools and share ideas. I think at the table is very important.
We have 30 seconds before we go to closing statements. So Justin, last 30 seconds.
Sure. So I think it's actually important also to have the parent councils involved in that decision-making process when we're seeking the new director. So that's a position where the trustee could actually invite more participation and help us to have actually a more clear idea of the desired traits, and also to have a little bit more direct responsibility of or role to the parents.
Great, thanks very much. Thank you very much to all the candidates. I think that was an excellent discussion of some of the key issues facing the future of our school board and facing whoever is going to be elected as Georgina trustee. I'd like to thank the debate committee for creating today's candidate questions. Now, let's move on to our closing statements. So we're going to do the closing statements in reverse order to the opening statements, which means we begin with Cynthia Cordova, and you have 1 minute.
Okay, thank you for watching today's debate, and thank you for the organizers and the panel and everybody that's come out today. I believe the choice is clear for voters in Georgina. It's time to put students first. After canvassing door to door, I've showed some of the interest and areas of concern. One is putting students first, and every decision should be made at that board level and in that lens. Providing services for special needs children, learning disabled, ASD children, and other students in need, and restoring the respect to taxpayers' money at the board. Time to manage that $1.5 billion better. That's my plan, and that is my focus. You can read more about me at puttingstudentsfirst.ca. I have submitted my application, and I am qualified and experienced, and you will see that as well on my resume in my website. I am asking you to hire me by voting for Cynthia Cordova on Friday, June 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Closing statement from Justin Porter.
All right, so thanks once again for watching. My vision for Georgina's schools is one that will celebrate students' achievements and evolve its programs to promote diversity, inspire students to discover their passions and develop their talents and skills for a thriving academic career in post-secondary education, or to enter the workforce prepared to be leaders of industry. With that said, the schools in Georgina need upgrades and more resources to be able to fulfill the needs and changing demands of industry standards for sciences, technology, engineering, and also for the trades in our modern economy. Students of all types, including those with disabilities, need supports, and they need the support of our school system to be in place, and it needs to be able to quickly and transparently facilitate learning. There needs to be better transparency and communication, and it's not enough for schools to just teach the curriculum. We have to create a nurturing, safe environment to train students.
Thank you. Closing statement from Robin Legault.
Well, I want to thank you, Georgina, for watching this debate. It's very, very important that you guys do come out and vote for us, because the only way change is going to happen if you guys come out and cast that vote. The YRDSB is currently right now in a position where it does need changes, and that's positive change. We have been far too long, we've been ignored. That needs to stop. Georgina needs to properly be represented at the board, and I strongly believe mental health, student success, and well-being should be a priority. And the promise I make you today and going forward is that I will try my best to do anything that I am capable of bringing positive change forward.
Thank you. And Megan Houston.
Thank you. Over the last year, many problems within the York Region District School Board have come to light. I believe that through open and honest communication, we can rebuild the trust that has been lost and create an environment that fosters inclusivity, innovation, and engagement. I've identified 3 priorities that I intend to focus on throughout this campaign and throughout my tenure as trustee if elected. Priority number 1 is responsibility. It's my responsibility to ensure that our students have strong representation at the table. Priority number 2 is integrity. I'll work with my fellow trustees to implement the recommendations of the Ministry of Education in a way that ensures that everyone feels as though their voices are being heard and their rights are being respected. And priority number 3 is community. As our community grows, our schools become more populated, I will ensure that our schools have access to the funding, resources, and support that our students need. Vote on June 23rd. Let's work together.
Thank you. And a closing statement from Rick Boudreau.
Thinking back a few years ago, my experience in education began at Centennial College. And it was as a solution to address the technical manpower shortage in the auto industry. I secured funding support from Ford Motor Company and the Ontario government and Centennial College to staff and allocate portion of the college facility for a new Ford apprenticeship training venture known as the Asset Program, which has since expanded across Canada. And in that role, I served as chair for 6 years, and after that, consulting support for 5. And as trustee for that type of a program, we continued tweaking it as we went along because it wasn't absolutely perfect from the onset. So many things came up that we had to make adjustments for, and which is why it's gone across Canada, because it's very successful. As a trustee, I will continue my good work helping people. I want all our students to do well. For example, as a trustee, I would like to explore ways for students to expand their career options after graduation. Thank you.
Okay. And now I just want to take an opportunity to thank all of the candidates for attending and participating in today's debate. The debate will air on Rogers TV every day from June 6th until June 22nd, the day before the actual election. The debate will also be available on rogerstv.com website and the Facebook page, as well as the YouTube channel. Join us on Friday, June 23rd for the results, starting live at 8 p.m. I will be joined by Julia Supa, who's local media, some of these candidates, as we learn the results of the by-election. To all of our Georgina Public School supporters, I encourage you, and we all here at Rogers TV encourage you to get to the advanced polls or on election day to vote. My name is Dave Szollosy. Thanks for watching.